Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, where we drink and talk about movies from 2007.
Imagine my little girl, Regular.
Guys, did you see me dance?
No, you waste energy and time.
I turned penis into gold.
Are you okay?
I want to see you naked.
Surprise, dude. You got herpes.
If I did you a ventriloquist.
You're really well dressed for a shadow puppeteer.
What is he going to culturally appropriate this time?
My man.
I drink your podcast. I drink it up.
Welcome back to another episode of I Drink Your Podcast. This week we watched Blades of Glory. And with me today are Ben, Emily, and Wes.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, this is Wes's voice.
Hey, and joining us this week is our special guest, Chris Bennett.
Hey, I'm so happy to be on your show. Best friends. Oh.
I'm just so happy that Chris started waving at us. Like our audience can see it. And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, you can hear it in his voice. But welcome to the show.
You could hear the wave.
Thank you so much. I feel cool being on your podcast.
You are cool.
Yeah.
So before we get started, does anyone have anything interesting in their glass?
Well, I have to finish mine real quick. So I started off with some hot apple cider. It's a virgin apple cider, just like Jimmy in this movie. And I'm going to dirty it up with some Fireball whiskey.
Oh, the presentation.
Just like Chaz.
I've got what I call a fire on ice, which is it's vodka soda, only the vodka is sriracha flavored.
Ooh.
So it's sriracha
What?
vodka and club soda.
Is it any good?
No. It's not. But I'm going to drink the whole thing.
The things we do for the show.
That's right.
Yeah, I didn't have anything too fancy, just some bourbon on ice.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to know what is in my drink?
Yes, sir. What's in your drink, Chris?
Well, I actually thought about this really hard because I listened to your podcast. And everyone seemed to have a good reason when you were watching Gone Baby Gone, like maybe drinking some Boston whiskey or something. So I thought for this movie, Blades of Glory, it should be something with ice. So then I was thinking maybe iced coffee. But then I was like, I don't want to be the only one not drinking a juicy beverage. And so then I went to the store to see if they had natty ice because I thought that would be good. But it was gross and they didn't have it. And then I wanted Bud Light ice, but they didn't have that. So I ended up getting a Coors Light seltzer because it had blue mountains and it felt like kind of ice skatey.
You know what? It's way more on brand than Matt will ever be on this show.
Well,
Yeah.
let's not jump ahead.
Yeah, normally mine are just like I found tequila and grapefruit juice and grenadine, and I ran out of ice. So
It doesn't even have fucking ice in it.
yeah, this is the drink they had in their practice facility, their second-rate practice facility for a second-rate drink. So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit of what you were up to in 2007?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you asked. I was thinking about it. I was in LA pursuing the stand-up comedy dream full time, doing like bringer shows and comedy contests. And then also living with my wife and daughter and also selling dental microscopes.
Hell of a racket.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a combination.
Yeah, this is 3 years before I met you as well. So, you know, you would say you were the same type of attitude, same type of person, right? You're just crushing it.
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely more mature now, more comfortable in my own skin than I was in 2007. In 2007, I was trying to pretend to be someone else sometimes and selling loops and then doing comedy. Now I just do comedy all the time and I'm way happier.
Well, that's good.
And it was the year before I got on the Jimmy Kimmel Show.
Oh,
Very nice.
2007.
So I was doing a bunch of bringer shows and comedy contests and
Slinging dental cameras.
yes, they're called loops. I also fitted the people on Grey's Anatomy for their loops, even though they didn't really need them for surgery, but they wanted them to look real. So I got to meet all those people.
What?
It was a pretty awesome like sales gig for an aspiring stand-up comedian. It was pretty awesome.
Right.
Nice. A lot better than like some of those other jobs that we have to have, like dog walker, barista.
Why did you say it like that?
Dog walker? What do you mean? What are you talking about?
The coolest part about the dental sales job was our biggest clients were the schools. And so once a year, you had to go give a presentation to 100 dental students. And all the other sales reps for the other company, they didn't do stand-up comedy, but I did stand-up comedy. So performing for 100 people, oh my gosh. Wow! And everyone wanted to buy loops from the fun guy, while these guys were using PowerPoint presentations.
And you're just up there shooting the shit.
Yeah. Like, oh, put those loops on. Woo, you look so handsome.
I don't know why when you first said that you had to sell to schools, my mind went to like preschools. And I just imagine you trying to sell dental cameras to kindergartners.
Oh, I totally thought the same thing, but elementary, just because like I myself am a teacher. I teach middle and high school. And so I was like, wait, what? Why are we offering dental care in schools now? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a big racket. You could save a lot of money if you go to an elementary school and have them do your teeth for you.
Chris, tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now.
Yes. Well, I'm loving life. I'm living in a small town called Sholo, Arizona. 10,000 people, 3 hours northeast away from Phoenix, Arizona. And it's the woods and trees and snow. Not what you think of when you think of Arizona.
You have snow?
Yeah. And it's
elevation.
It's super. Yeah, we're higher than Denver.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
So
man.
you're like
way higher.
a mile and a half high?
Yeah, we're a mile and a half high, brah. And so I'm living in Sholo. I was the co-host for a couple of years when I first moved up here. But now I'm the main host of The Morning Brew with Chris and Mick on Q Country 92.5. Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Not too early. I get to sleep in a little bit, and I only have to do it for 2 hours.
That's nice.
Beautiful.
And so that's fun. And then, when it's not illegal, I do stand-up comedy.
Right. Right. And if you're listening to this sometime in the future, we are still in the pandemic. It's not like Footloose, but comedy in Sholo.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this movie and kind of what made you excited to be on the podcast.
Well, to be with my friend Matt Anderson, who I haven't talked to in a long time.
And now Matt is waving. What the fuck, guys?
And so that was the number one selling point. Anything Matt asks, I'll be like, yeah. 2, I picked this movie because I'm just a silly person. And when I go for entertainment, I don't like to be stressed out. I don't like to cry. I don't like to be scared. I just like to laugh and be silly. That's why I chose this movie, because it's pure silliness.
It really is.
I love Will Ferrell, and it's basically my wheelhouse of comedy. Just goofy, irreverent, silly comedy.
Yes. I would 100% agree with that, especially with, not to jump ahead, the ending. It's just like on point with what you do. And I love it. Well, I'm excited to talk about this movie with you, Chris, and everyone else. So if you guys have not listened to the show before, the first half of the podcast, we will be discussing and reviewing Blades of Glory. And then the second half will feature our competitive Battle of Twits tournament, a creative competition to determine the top twit between Ben and myself this week. Our current leaderboard is me at 9. Ben and Emily are tied at 8. Wes is at 6. And all the guests are at 0.
Idiots.
Well, it's a little deceiving because they cashed in their points. I'm in the process of being lapped right now.
Yeah, I think we should also say that since we are in the middle of a tournament, that Emily kicked my ass last week. So
thanks,
currently, Emily is in the lead in the tournament. So the winner today will go on to face her in the final.
I wonder who that will be.
I don't know. I kind of want to see a Matt Emily battle.
I do too.
I'm getting better. Yeah, I had a maybe 26 episode streak of losing.
You tied once.
Right, with a tie in there in the middle, but I've been coming on strong as of lately. But
That's my boy.
Slow starter. So let's talk about Blades of Glory, which was directed by Will Speck and Josh Gordon, featuring a slew of cameos, but the main cast will be Will Ferrell, John Hader, Will Arnett, and Amy Poehler. And I feel like Craig T. Nelson should also be there on there.
Well, and probably Jenna Fisher, too.
And Jenna Fisher, yeah.
And Rami Malco.
Blades of Glory was filmed before a live studio audience.
This has to be a proud moment for Michaels and McElroy. You have to think, the only thing sweeter than winning a gold medal is sharing it with your fellow countrymen.
Gosh, I'm getting sick. You smell like after-shaving taco meat.
Yes, I do.
After tying for gold in Montreal, rival figure skaters Jimmy McElroy and Chaz Michaels break out into a fight on the podium and are banned for life. 3.5 years later, Jimmy's stalker tells him there's a loophole in the ban, saying he could go back to skating, but in the pairs division. While searching for a female skater partner, Chaz and Jimmy fight again and end up in jail, but Coach bails them out and has the idea that they could be male partners.
I had never watched this movie before. This was my first time. I had a very silly time, but it really reminded me a lot of my own skating experience. And I'm going to tell you right now, even though I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, and I'm supposed to be like this big hockey person and really good at skating because I'm from northern Minnesota, I'm not. I'm terrible. But I thought I'd ask before I tell my skating story if there are any fun skating stories in the group, since most of us are Minnesota's native.
Terrible at skating too.
Yep, I can't skate either.
I was not raised in Minnesota, so I don't have that as part of my heritage and upbringing. But I did in high school land a pretty choice gig of being a rink attendant at a public ice skating rink. So for the city that I lived in for, I think, 2 or 3 years, I got to basically sit in the warming house of this public, just outdoor park where they just hosed down some ground so that people could skate on it. And I got to sit in the ice house and basically just make sure that it was unlocked, the lights were on. If anybody got injured, like call somebody. You know, I occasionally helped a couple kids ice up their skates, but mostly it was just doing homework and listening to music and keeping tally of how many people are showing up at these parks every day.
Wow.
So your
sounds like
skating
a terrible
experience is watching other people skate.
When there was no one else around, I did get a pair of ice skates and practice, and I'm not too bad. I can rollerblade, and it transfers pretty easily, I think, other than stopping.
Okay.
Yeah, my skating story is less about skating and more about being around other skaters. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at in my life.
Chris.
I hope Chris is like an expert figure skater in Arizona.
I really
we're
hope
all just
so.
dog shit Minnesota skaters.
No, I'm not, but I do have an embarrassing skating story because in Arizona, obviously we didn't skate much, but for birthday parties and dates, that's where you win.
Oh.
And for my friend Hannah in junior high, she had the first boy-girl birthday party, and it was at the ice skating rink, but we were going to meet at her house first, and I had this really cool shirt picked out to look real cool while ice skating, and I got the date mixed up, and I showed up a day early to her birthday party, like total idiot. But then the next day we went ice skating, and it was good.
Well, for me, watching this movie stirred up some old memories of what I used to do with my time. And that was with my sisters. We would do skating tournaments in our kitchen with Barbie dolls playing Queen as our music. And I'm not kidding you. Seven Seas a Rye and Flash were like the two songs that my Barbie dolls would always skate to in the kitchen because it was the only tiled floor we had and it was white. And so it looked like an ice skating rink. And we would do fucking flips and shit in the middle of the air because our Barbies were so good at that. So when I was seeing this, I'm like, dude, that's what I used to do as a kid, but not real life. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how you even judge that when you spin your Barbie doll. You're like, was that a triple axel or did she make 9 rotations?
Or was it like 20?
It was a good time. But anyway, this movie was a blast. I had a great time watching this movie.
Where do you think it ranks since it's your first time watching it? Where does it rank in the pantheon of Will Ferrell movies?
I have not seen a lot of Will Ferrell movies, actually. I've seen Elf, and I saw Anchorman once, but I think that might be it when it comes to Will
Jesus.
Ferrell.
What about the Adam McKay ones, Talladega Nights or Step Brothers?
Haven't seen those.
You haven't seen Zoolander?
He's in Zoolander?
Yeah, he's the main bad guy.
Oh, I saw it like one time and I don't really remember. I'm sorry.
That's funny that you mentioned that because I started looking at his IMDb because I know that Will Ferrell is a pretty big comedian heavy hitter, but I know that there's definitely been some misses in his career. So I went back just to kind of look at where this fell in like the roller coaster of Will Ferrell being funny and movies that didn't quite hit. And between 2001, Zoolander, and 2010, Megamind, he was a major actor. So discrediting all the uncredited scenes and TV appearances. He was in 22 movies during that time.
Jeez.
Yeah, just based on my own opinion, I think 11 of them were good. So honestly, about 50-50, just looking at those movies in that time.
Where did this one fall on that spectrum of good?
I probably should have actually ranked it. And honestly, when I started watching it to when I finished, it got even better. This wasn't the first time I've seen it, but I always thought it was kind of dumb and like some of the cheesy stuff at the beginning. But then by the end, when you kind of realize that that's the point and that it's intentional, and I think it does a really good job of knowing what it is. I would say this definitely ranks in the top half of those half good movies. So top 5 or 6 of those 22 during that decade.
I didn't think Will Ferrell worked in this movie very well.
How so?
The characters of Will Ferrell's that I like are people that I can be like, oh, that reminds me of someone else. Like I could see that person actually existing in the real world. And with this character, it like hypersexual male figure skater, like that description doesn't feel like a real world thing to me. So I had a hard time relating with that. I also feel like he steamrolls John Hader in this movie with his comedy. Like John Hader is basically just pushed to the background of this entire movie to play like the straight man almost to Will Ferrell's constant improvisation, because something like 85% of Will Ferrell's lines were improv is what I read.
Yep,
right, I saw that too.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely kind of steals the scenes. And I had a lot of moments in this movie where I just felt like this was Step Brothers beta version. Like before they got to the final version of Step Brothers, there's a lot of the same like chemistry and almost plot points that kind of show up in Step Brothers. So that definitely put it down a little bit for me.
Yeah, but there's a naivety to his character in Step Brothers that makes him more relatable as a character and as a person. Like I see Step Brothers and I see that character of Brennan and I'm like, oh, that guy could exist. Same thing with Talladega Nights, like the race car driver who just wants to go fast. Like that's how I already view race car drivers, so that it fit in with my stereotype. Or even Anchorman, like a misogynistic 1970s TV personality. Like that felt very real to me.
Yeah.
Even though it was like real, but turned up all the way to 11.
So you're saying it's more about the machismo in the ice skating world that took you out of it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I kind of like that out of this world character. I do see your point, Ben, but I think for me it worked. I like that fish out of water, flipping the whole thing on its side. Like, you know what you're getting into, especially pretty early in this movie when they introduce both of our skaters, and they do that in a really funny way of doing their backstories really quickly.
Yes.
Packed with jokes. So funny. And I felt like, yeah, I do see your point as well on John Hader getting a little steamrolled, but I felt like he also shined in like a more subtle way. Like it wasn't to like 11 with Napoleon Dynamite, which might be what we want from John Hader, especially because he kind of falls off the map as an actor after this film. But I think another example of a character that Will Ferrell rocks that isn't real is Elf. You know, it's just like this out of this world character, and it worked for me.
Chris, now you said you're a Will Ferrell fan. What did you think of this movie?
I love this movie, and here I was thinking about, let's see, from that time period you talked about from 2001 to 2010, where this would rank. It would probably be definitely in my top 5 for sure. And I enjoyed the fact that like his character doesn't really exist in real life, but I thought it would be interesting to see what an over-sexualized figure skater looks like.
Yeah.
And so, I definitely love that out of this world type character, fish out of water type thing that Matt said. I 100% like and agree.
I agree. I totally agree.
Get a look at this is what a skater's body looks like, and they're like going over his tattoos, you know.
Oh,
right.
And he had a tramp stamp.
Yeah.
And he didn't even have that many tattoos, which was hilarious. That like John Hader's like, wow, tell me what all your tattoos are about. And it was like he had 4 tattoos about 4 women he slept with.
So for me, Will Ferrell in this movie was this rock star of the figure skating world. And so showing the dichotomy between Jimmy and Chaz and how different they were in every way possible, that to me added to the tension and the conflict and how they like work together. And so even if it's not really believable to have this rock star, over sexualized sex addict figure skater, I found it to be, it's all satire of figure skating and like how ridiculous things can be between competitors. And this can be outside into any sport, really, just having any sort of competition between characters. I felt like by making it over the top, it worked for me.
Yeah. And the tone with Craig T. Nelson clearly stating like they're opposites, like in the movie, I felt like that kind of raised it up. It was like, oh, this movie's just like telling you what's happening. And it was kind of funny in that regard.
I do think Will Ferrell is the best part of this movie. And with other Will Ferrell movies, you have supporting characters that kind of are their own thing that also contribute to the funny. And in this movie, I didn't feel that. Like the Amy Poehler and Will Arnett characters, like, were they supposed to be funny? Were they supposed to be just straight villains? Like,
I guess that's true.
They had no like really funny lines. Jenna Fisher wasn't that funny. It didn't work for me because the funny was only coming from Will Ferrell, and it was coming at such a pace that it felt overwhelming.
I think that's a really interesting way to look at Will Ferrell's characters, where are they someone who that stereotype or that archetype of person already exists in the real world? One of my first thoughts when I started watching this movie again was I wrote down, there's nothing in the rule book that says 2 men can't be doubles partners. So in my mind, it was just a very Air Bud situation.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, you're kind of like, this is going to be out there.
I love that Will Ferrell's character was a figure skater from the streets. I don't know if there's ever been a figure skater from the mean streets. And I don't know if there's ever been a sex addict figure skater. Like I love those 2 elements.
Yeah, the underground skating scene it was.
Yeah.
And then you have William Fletcher was the billionaire father who disowns John Hader at the very beginning.
I'm unadopting you.
And he just loves to just pick up orphans and like make them Olympians in different sports.
Yes, the Time magazine cover, Where Are the Orphans? A lot of great jokes in this movie.
Yeah, but I can see your point, Ben, with, Will Ferrell kind of taking over. I didn't really think about that. And usually Amy Poehler, Will Arnett, Jenna Fisher, like you would expect more from them in any other movie. And I guess I didn't really think about that, but I can see it.
Well, now, especially since they've had a lot bigger careers since this movie. But it's also interesting that Will Arnett and Amy Poehler were married during this movie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And having to play brother and sister who are secretly in love is a very funny thing to happen to people who are actually married in real life.
Okay, if we're jumping ahead to the secretly in love, that part did not work for me at all. Because
no, not at all.
The incest came out of nowhere. Like, you need to build up your incest in a movie if you want to throw that shit in.
You have to build up your incest in a movie for it to happen.
But in the back of your mind, haven't you ever thought about incest with these figure skaters? Because they are, like, a lot of times they are brother and sister, and they're having a dance like they're in love. Like, I think that's a weird thing. So it wasn't a big jump for me to realize, oh, yeah, it makes sense. These guys are in love with each other.
And the paintings, They had paintings of each other like on the wall, and Will Arnett's like thinking deeply on like a dead exotic cat rug.
Pretty sure it was a polar bear, but sure, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think a lot of those things were too subtle, though. I think you're right, Ben. I think Will Ferrell's character overshadowed any sort of side characters that were happening. I think Coach did a really great job. Also, I was like, whoa, is that Mr. Incredible? That's Mr. Incredible. So that's me. But just generally, this movie, it had a really great concept of like this rivalry and then having to work together. I really liked that main storyline. But I think a lot of the side characters, now that I'm reflecting on it a little bit more, felt a little hollow, if that makes sense.
Has anyone on here ever watched the best figure skating movie ever called Cutting Edge from the 80s?
I haven't seen it.
So this movie was basically a spoof of Cutting Edge, which is almost a real story. Like a lot of similar, obviously it wasn't two men joining forces, but it was basically an Olympic hockey player that's no longer allowed to play hockey.
Oh.
He gets teamed up with this really good doubles girl who always goes through her partners because she's a bitch. And then they team up and then they end up falling in love. So it was almost the same storyline as that, but just, you know, a completely bizarro world version of it.
Do you mind? I'm trying to eat here.
Just thought you'd like to see what a skater's body really looks like. Go ahead, drink it in. Don't be shy. Looking's for free. Touching's gonna cost you something. Checking out my ink. Some people refer to me as the Illustrated Man.
Competitors Strands and Fairchild Van Waldenberg guilt their sister Katie into start spying on Jimmy and Chaz to defeat them. But Katie and Jimmy start a romantic relationship, so she decides to stop. Chaz and Jimmy learn to become friends and work together in order to place at nationals to go to Montreal, to the dismay of the Van Waldenberg siblings.
In this movie, I didn't talk about it earlier, but just briefly, I wanted to mention that there was some controversy about a lot of the writing credits in this movie with Busy Phillips. She wrote a lot of, or helped co-write a lot of the stuff with the Cox brothers and helped flesh out the screenplay. She originally had the idea about the male rivalry with figure skating when she was hanging out with Craig Cox. They have later now apologized for that, but I definitely found that to be really interesting, how it took 10 years essentially for them to acknowledge that she was a writer on this movie. And I was like, whoa, that is definitely interesting to hear about.
So the story credit that she has, was that not in the credits of this movie
It's
when
not.
it came out? Okay, so this was added later on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Nerdist had a column in, I think, 2018, all about like the background of this. And so you learn about how they didn't have YouTube to watch figure skating, so they had to buy a book and learn about figure skating, and how Jimmy was modeled on one of these famous skaters, Johnny Weir, who had just like some really interesting costumes and things. And, you know, how Ben Stiller was originally on board for being Chaz, but then he decided that he played too many characters like that, so he left. And how John Hader broke his ankle when he was training. So they had all this really cool information and this really great interview. But then they ended up later adding that Busy Phillips was part of the writing process as well, after she wrote her book and freaked out at them and got an apology. So it definitely kind of opened my eyes a bit about, you know, we've talked about this before, a lot of the sexism that happens in Hollywood just generally, but also in the early 2000s, how that was kind of hush hush and no one could really talk about it. And so for me as a woman, I was like, I never see comedy written by women. And so that was just kind of cool to see her a part of this, seeing that I liked it so much.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up Ben Stiller, Emily, because Ben Stiller in the Chaz character, and it was going to be Will Ferrell in the Jimmy character,
right,
originally. And I think seeing Will Ferrell in that Jimmy type of character would have been a really interesting move by Will Ferrell, because I've never seen him play a character like that.
Besides Elf.
Even Elf, though, like where he's allowed to be dirty. Like, he can't do anything dirty in Elf. Foolishly sexual when you have no sex experience would be a very funny Will Ferrell character.
But here's another silver lining that could have happened if Ben Stiller would have done this movie. We might not have gotten Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah.
So obviously one thing that comes out of this, because they are breaking stereotypes and being two men as a duo in figure skating, which is, I don't know if it's actually in the rules at all. Does anybody know that if there is anything that actually says it has to be a male and female?
I don't.
Did not read the Olympic figure skating rule book and prep for this. Sorry.
Can it be two golden retrievers?
Exactly. So there was definitely some questionable things that after watching so many 2007 movies, I don't think this one was up there with like the aforementioned Heartbreak Kid or some of the other problematic movies that we have seen. But it definitely wasn't guilt-free. But I do have to highlight two of my favorite things that when they started getting popular and they go cut to a bunch of people's reactions to figure skating being more gay than it normally is, or they cut to one guy who just goes, "Does this look right to you?" And then he looks down and he's holding two hot dogs in one bun.
Yeah.
I thought that was very funny. And then right after that, there's a priest. And then after that, there's a guy who's looking at a picture of the two of them. Goes, "That blonde chick's a dude?" Oh, man. And immediately, yes. all I could think about was, why did he say, "Oh, man"? He guarantee he spanked it to Jimmy.
Yes, he did. And so the reason that works is because they are making fun of people that are homophobic. And so for me, I was like, oh, yes, they're showing things as like, you know, having homophobia within, like there were multiple mentions of who's the girl. I don't want to be the girl. You're the girl kind of thing.
All the faces in dick shots and touching each other inappropriately on the ice rink.
Right. But again, you know, having that element, it really, I even wrote down, wow, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be in 2007.
Yeah.
During their big figure skating number in this second act, there were a couple reaction shots where the homophobia started to come from the main characters, and I thought that felt a little off instead of just getting reactions and making fun of these people who are homophobic. Like the shots they had when like John Hader's crotch was in Will Ferrell's face and like Will Ferrell's reacting and making a face. Like it just that part felt a little off. However, I will say that figure skating part is my favorite part of the movie.
Yes.
There's something about that Aerosmith song that pulls me in that scene, and I get so into that. And even though it ends so stupidly with like their scissors move at center ice, which doesn't make sense, like I still love that entire part, and it builds so well with the music.
Absolutely agree. And I think that's kind of funny too, when we were talking about Amy Poehler and Will Arnett being siblings, but having this secret loving relationship, and them skating to Marky Mark while they have this secret love. And then these two male ice skaters breaking the trends of being, you know, two male ice skaters performing together and having this extreme love song, I thought was very, very funny.
Chris, any highlights from the figure skating with Aerosmith?
I loved how they did highlight their actual skating at times. Obviously, there are times where they probably had a stunt double, but when they really highlighted their skating, it was very simple moves that I feel like I could do too. Like they were just stepping left and right and
yeah. They're just on the ice on their knees and like kind of moving their arms in synchronized movements.
And the scissor move, yeah, that was classic. I didn't know what they were gonna do when they started skating towards each other. And so it was a pleasant surprise.
Right. Out of all the millions of combinations of moves.
Nut to nut.
They just scissor each other.
I also found it interesting. I just watched Wonder Woman, and we won't say too much, but I did like that the CGI in this movie was better than some of the CGI in Wonder Woman 1984.
What?
I'll agree with that. The way they put the Will Ferrell and John Hader faces on the other figure skaters' bodies, like they did a pretty good job of it for this being 2007, especially with those skaters moving so fast and still having that face be recognizable as our two main actors.
Well, I'm sure that there had to be a lot of like line work too. So specifically, there's a scene where John Hader is facing forward with his legs wrapped around Will Ferrell's waist, and they're like going around in a circle, and that's a very funny pose to watch. But as he dismounts, he does a super unnatural, like front flip off of that position. But like I was like, yeah, okay,
sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the actual figure skating moves here for a second. The Iron Lotus, is that a real move?
No.
What was that archival footage then?
Yeah, what was that?
From North Korea?
It's basically ripping off that movie I told you, Cutting Edge. In that movie, it was the Pacheco twist. And it was a very similar move to what they do in Blades of Glory, except Blades of Glory obviously takes it up a notch and puts in the element of somebody's head getting chopped up.
Can we talk about those mannequins with their mouths open like they've just been this
all with the blonde wigs?
Yeah.
Yes, that got me. The fact that they put a blonde wig on every single mannequin's head. And when John Hader picks it up and looks at it, I'm like, why the fuck did they take the time to put on it? But it just added such a great comedic element to it.
Yeah, and they look up and it's Craig T. Nelson sharpening a skate, smoking a cigar. I mean, like, what?
No, Iron Lotus is not a thing.
Okay.
But the Cox brothers decided that they thought it'd be really funny. They started with the idea of decapitation, and they're like, that'd be really funny in this movie. And then they decided, where could we put that in and how could we add it in? And so they decided North Korea, obviously.
They were the only ones brave enough to try it.
That's right.
Apparently.
So true.
But this movie has a lot of real figure skaters in it, which is kind of cool. There are so many. And like Sasha Cohen is the one that like smells Chaz's jock strap at the end. And Scott Hamilton's in it. Peggy Fleming's in it. And I don't know a lot of the names, but even Nancy Kerrigan, I think that's how you say her name. Like she's the one from I, Tonya, like that whole thing. She's in it. And Sarah Kawahara did the I, Tonya choreography, as well as she did a lot of choreography for Michelle Kwan. So she like did all the choreography for this movie with Lisa Marie Allen, who's from like the 1980s Olympic. She got 5th place in it. And she was also the sweater mom in the beginning that gets licked by Will Ferrell.
Oh, wow.
So an actual choreographer helped choreograph this stuff. Are you allowed in figure skating to not be on your skates on the ice, or isn't that a penalty? Their whole slide thing, I thought your skates always had to be like on the ice.
I didn't read the Olympic rule book.
No, I'm pretty sure they get down and they have like interpretive dance elements as well. I think it's just falls are counted against you, but I'm not sure. I'm just talking out my ass. So somebody can call me on that.
I think most of their skating was probably illegal by Olympic standards, especially the costumes. And like, I've never seen like Olympic figure skating where someone turns their hand into a peacock. It's
No, that's real. That's real.
That's real.
Inspired by Johnny Weir.
He did a swan.
Yes,
oh
he did
my
a swan.
gosh.
Learning
That's
things
hilarious.
new every day.
I'm committed to this thing called friendship, and I ain't going nowhere. And if you think I'm going anywhere, you're wrong. You know why? Because I will not back down, ever! I've won a lot of radio contests because I refuse to get off the line! If we went to a Halloween party, dressed as Batman and Robin, I'd go as Robin. That's how much you mean to me. That was stupid that I said that. You know what? No, I'm not. I don't think that's stupid. I'm glad that I said that. Hey, turd face, guess what? I've taken every single one of your teddy bears and I've stuffed them down my pants. Hey, yikes. Sorry. For about a month, my urine smelled like marshmallows.
Katie is forced to go along with their siblings' sabotage plans and tries to seduce Chaz, the sex addict, but both he and Katie can't go through with it because they value Jimmy too much. Unfortunately, Jimmy sees them together and runs away brokenhearted. The next morning, Chaz and Jimmy are both kidnapped by Straz in Fairchild. However, they escape and barely make it to the competition. Even though Chaz breaks his ankle, the duo successfully does the Iron Lotus and wins.
I think it's silly that a single move just automatically wins you the championship.
Well, Jimmy mentions that, Chaz is like, oh, we did it. And then Jimmy's like, well, we don't know yet. So for a second, because I thought the same thing.
I've never been to a sex addicts meeting, but that is exactly what I picture them to be like.
Where they all start hooking up with each other.
Well, like, can you imagine, like, just talking about your stories, and if you're a sex addict, how turned on you would get by someone else's story?
I mean, I see your point, but you got to have a great, sex class counselor who's probably not as handsome as Luke Wilson, another great cameo, who's there to control the group.
Matt, I feel like you're speaking from experience or something.
I mean, I'm just guessing.
I love the Asian woman who is sitting next to
to him. The back and forth, like trying to trade glances with Luke Wilson was very funny. But I think also I have to assume that real sex addict meetings, they don't probably share the good times. It's probably more a conversation of the times when I realize I have a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Great
Not to bring it down into reality or anything.
Jeez, Wesley.
Well, then now I don't want to go to one of those meetings.
So for this ending, my favorite part is probably all of the sabotage that is happening between Fairchild and, I can't remember his name, but Will Arnett's character, and how Will Arnett kidnaps Chaz in this taxi, and then they go through this whole long chase. It was by far the funniest thing for me in this entire movie, especially when they get to inside of the competition space and they all suddenly slow down and are trying to walk with their figure skates, and their figure skates get caught in the escalator. I just lost my shit, especially when they are not on carpeting and they're just sliding all over the place. It goes from 60 to 0 in such a small amount of time, but it just cracked me up.
That part had my favorite line in the movie, and it's Will Ferrell with a ski in his hand as Will Arnett grabs this random woman to block, and he's like, "Don't make me kill her."
Then Will Arnett grabs a crossbow and shoots the mascot in the head and just goes, "Snowflake."
2 mascots were injured in the making of this movie.
Was it the one that was on fire?
Yes.
Oh, no.
And I loved how he tied him up in rope with ice skates all around him, which is just the perfect thing to undo yourself in.
Right.
And then I loved how John Hader's character had to overcome his germ phobia to get the key. Oh, that was, and just the way the camera was going, like there was like a cigarette butts on the toilet paper. There were Band-Aids on the toilet paper.
It's disgusting.
So if you haven't seen this movie in a while, he's on his side and he's got to eat toilet paper, and it's bringing all these objects closer to him. And
he's handcuffed to a bathroom stall, a dirty bathroom that they make very clear is dirty. The key gets tossed in a trash can. It falls over, and then magically a full toilet paper roll that was in the trash can rolls directly towards his face while he's hiding under the stall. And then he has to basically hoover up this line of toilet paper. I've been watching a lot of British TV to get the key close enough so that he could get it. And I looked away during a lot of that. That was up there for me with needles.
What?
Yeah, eating a Band-Aid, a dirty Band-Aid, that's disgusting.
But he had to do it in order for them to win.
Right.
Yes.
Excellent point.
The line when Will Ferrell is cutting himself free with the skates outside of that place, and he goes, "Whoever invented ropes is an a-hole."
Yeah. Oh, yes, that was my favorite line. I was going to ask if there were any favorite lines of everyone's. I mean, obviously, Will Ferrell had a shit ton of hilarious one-liners that were improvised, but were there any ones?
No lines are jumping out to me, but my favorite and funniest thing that made me laugh is kind of subtle, but it was Coach's aha moment where he's watching them fight, and then he lifts John Hader above his head and spins him, and where he's just watching it on the TiVo. I was laughing so hard. He's like, "Oh my God, these guys can skate together."
My other favorite line is he's in the Grublets. Will Ferrell is in the Grublets costume, and he's super drunk, and he skates out, and he says, "None of you sons of bitches try to be heroes." They're all like the little woodland creatures.
For me, I had a lot of great lines from Will Ferrell, but one was actually from Will Arnett when Amy Poehler's character is talking about, nothing's going to break up teams faster. And he goes, herpes. And I just lost it. Just the delivery of it was beautiful.
What about you, Chris? Do you have one?
Probably that same scene where he's coming out and he says, none of you a-hole, none of you try to be heroes. When he throws up and then he throws up again and he's like, encore. I like that.
Well, I will. I'll tell you my two favorites as they lead perfectly into a couple other observations that I had about this movie.
These are just a few of our incredible thoughts.
So I think one of the most prolific from this movie, thank you to Kanye and Jay-Z for collaborating and including this quote in one of their songs, which isn't a great song, but we're going to skate to one song and one song only. And then it cuts out in the Jay-Z song. Then nobody knows what it means. It's provocative. It gets people going. That's just such a good quote.
My humps. Yeah.
What does it mean? Nobody knows what it means.
Nobody knows. It's provocative. And then my second favorite, which I have to disagree with you, Ben, when you said that Will Arnett didn't really have many funny lines, because this is the one that absolutely made me bend over laughing. It's a kind of a throwaway, but after they do their Marky Mark bit, Will Arnett goes, not only did we embarrass Marky Mark, but we let down the Funky Bunch. That one got me the most. Also, I don't know if anybody noticed, Matt Damon, king of cameos, has his headshot on the refrigerator in their training house.
What?
No. Wow. I didn't notice that.
Matt Damon, king of cameos.
Okay.
What the fuck?
There's a lot of stuff, like decorations wise, in that house that I recommend people look into or pay closer attention to the next time you watch it. The last observation I had is that Chaz is also Will Ferrell's character's name from Wedding Crashers. And I can't help but love the idea that 2005 Wedding Crashers Will Ferrell was actually Chaz Michael Michaels, who lived at home with his mom and just once meatloaf and then became a national ice skating champion.
The sex addiction connection too, like he's going to funerals to pick up chicks.
Right,
Like it very easily could be the same guy.
Yeah, the Grumlings period.
Yeah, yes.
That is an amazing observation.
Ben, did they say it?
Now, say my name.
They don't say it, like, at all. Like, I don't even think they say the words blades or glory in the entire movie. Like, neither word is used.
Not in the movie, but did you listen after the movie?
No, was there something in the end credits?
Oh my gosh, you didn't listen to the song that was playing?
No.
Oh my gosh, I'm taking over Say My Name. This is Emily taking over for Ben because he's an idiot. If you listen to the whole song, in the end credits, they're singing Blades of Glory the whole time. It is a wonderful song. It's not in the movie, but it's after, and it's in the credits. So there's a whole song called Blades of Glory. It's wonderful.
We're going to have to start making the credits a staple here. Wesley finding cutscenes.
Yeah, I watched this last moment, so I cut it short and figured there wouldn't be any post credits. But thank you, Emily, for picking up the slack.
I mean, there was a credits scene at the end too, but it wasn't that interesting. It was just the stalker playing with dolls of Chaz and Jimmy and himself.
Yeah, on a kitchen floor, judging it himself.
Shut up, man.
Emily, did you find any math in this movie?
So get off your ass, let's do some math.
Oh, so much math. All about aerodynamics, obviously. So we're going to talk about aerodynamic lifts today.
Oh.
Since there's like a lot of lifting going on in this movie, right? So we need to be aerodynamic about it. So this is going to be a little hand wavy. So right from the beginning, we see that video. I love the little flashbacks of little Jimmy with the aerodynamics, like trying to get used to the wind and everything. And he's minimizing his drag and maximizing his speed in figure skating. So when Jimmy and Chaz team up, they're going to have to calculate some lift, especially by the end when they have to switch forces suddenly to achieve the Iron Lotus. And so I looked up the formula for aerodynamic lift, and it's equal to the lift coefficient, which I have no idea what that means, times the density, times half the velocity squared, times the wing area of Jimmy's arms. And so because they switched, I know that Chaz is 6'4". That's probably his wingspan. And I did some fancy math and got that in order to successfully lift fat Chaz, Jimmy needs to go at least 23.83 repeating decimals miles per hour.
Wow.
I made that up.
That's awesome.
I thought you were going to talk about like the pounds per square inch of pressure on his penis being held up by a single hand on his cock.
That would have been funny.
Or the scoring system, you know?
Right.
That would have been the easiest, probably.
See,
that's
numbers. Matt's version of math.
Right, where he's like, where they tie, and somehow there's 2 first place, a second place, and a bronze. Like, how does that make sense?
My favorite thing about that scene where they got the gold. Did you notice? I think it was 3rd place or 2nd place was China, but he was dressed as a matador.
Yeah,
I found that very funny.
Chris, do you have a review for us?
Yes, I do, best friend. I'll tell you. Blades of Glory gives me everything I look for in a Will Ferrell movie. Silliness, laughs, and absurdity. And it was delivered in spades in this movie. I am going to judge this movie on the same rating they used in the movie. The 6.0 was the highest, and I'm going to use blades. On a scale of 0 to 6 blades, I give Blades of Glory 6 blades.
Ooh.
Oh, a perfect score.
Perfect score. They win the gold.
I love it.
All right, so before we get into the battle, we're going to do a little bit of a rolling. So anybody that has listened to the show, you know what's up, but we're going to roll some dice. So I will leave it up to Chris. Do you want Matt to be highs or lows?
I want him to be high.
All right.
So does
he probably already is.
Yeah.
That's a 9 on a D20. So we're going to give the first choice to Ben. So Ben, I've got 6 options for you here. Do you want to be evens or odds?
Give me odds, baby.
All right. So your options are Remy from Ratatouille, Frank Lucas from American Gangster, or Queen Gorgo from 300.
Give me Remy.
All right. And Matt, that means that you are even. So your choices are Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood, The Cube from Mr. Megorium, or Edna Turnblad from Hairspray.
I'll just go with Daniel Plainview just because, I mean, we'll get into it, I'm sure.
And now, it's time to skate Blades of the Twits. I will pose a triple axle of questions to our less than Tony Hawk pro skaters. Let them try to convince me who is the best solo male pair duo. And after, I will raise my scorecard. The winner of each round will get 1 gold medal of glory. Second place does a pirouette too hard and horks it. I will more easily be persuaded by the flamboyant and glittery answers. So, Twits, are you ready?
Yes.
Woo. Woo. All right. So before my beautiful intro, you were each given a random character. Sorry, a Wandom character, because yes, question 1 is a Wesley's Wandom question. So with the character that you were randomly assigned, please describe the winning figure skating routine, including costume, song choice, and any special moves. So Matt, you chose Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood.
I'm going to just kick it off with a little bit of a speech from my character. I'm an Iceman, ladies and gentlemen, and I have numerous concerns spread across this state, and I have many wells flowing 1,000 barrels of ice per day, and I like to think of myself as an Iceman. And as an Iceman, I hope that you'll forgive me for just good old-fashioned plain speaking. Now for this is a very much family enterprise, and I work side by side with my wonderful son, HW, which I think a few of you have met. That's right. His dual partner in skating is his son, a very light and tossable partner that can help him create and pull off moves nobody thought was possible. Their special move that would win them championships over and over would be called the Prospector land grab, in which Daniel would throw HW clear across the rink, where he would rotate and land beautifully across the state lines all the way across the rink. Now, their costumes would be the very fancy suits and top hats, like the very same suits they used to impress all those potential well-digging communities. And to answer the music question, they don't have music. And that's to bring awareness to the deaf community.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh man.
Chris, you've seen There Will Be Blood?
I've seen that one scene, the milkshake scene, but I know what it's about, but I haven't seen the whole movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The deaf community was a real left field because I thought you were going to say no music because of the movie, which makes a lot of sense. Because the soundtrack in that movie is very, very subtle.
So as a quick reminder, HW goes deaf, right?
Yes.
That's what happens?
Mm-hmm.
His son? Okay. That's what I wanted to just remember.
Thank you for putting that together.
It's been
for
a
me.
while. Great. So my question that I have for you, Matt, is you said they wear these fancy suits and top hats like from in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern is the aerodynamics of these suits. Are they going to be a little bit more tailored to them? Or are they still going to be very original from the movie? Are you adding anything to add to the spectacle of it all?
Great question, Emily. So I think it's going to be original because, presentation is part of figure skating. So the more original and, the tails coming down as they skate would be flapping in the wind, but, slowing them down a little bit. But if you remember from your math quotient or whatever formula it was, HW's weight is like 30 pounds. So he's going to be able to fly. That guy's
Matt doesn't understand children.
No,
it's
but
okay.
I love it.
And yes, his wingspan is a little bit shorter, but you got to remember, he's like 30 pounds. So, yeah.
Chris, any questions you want to know anything from Matt?
Will there be milkshakes in your routine?
Only for winners. So yes, every time after they win.
All right. Very good. Benjamin, you chose Remy the Rat from Ratatouille.
I did. So Remy will be skating to Bullet with Butterfly Wings by Smashing Pumpkins, which for those who don't know is the song that says, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. So he's dressed in this dazzling orange sequenced body tight suit, in honor of the Smashing Pumpkins, the orange color. And from his hat on his head extends 6 long fabric things that go almost down to the ice. So it looks like he's almost stuck in a bird cage.
Oh my God.
And all of the moves at the beginning of the routine are done within the confines of this cage. Like his dancing is him gnawing at the cage and shaking it, trying to get out. Like that's his dance moves. But all of his twists and his turns are happening within this cage. So it's all really tight to his body. But then he goes to do that really, really fast spin. And when he does that, the cage starts whipping out. So it looks like he's a helicopter. And then the blades of that helicopter retreat into his hat. And now he's free from the cage to do any movement he wants. So he explores the space, hitting double axle. And then, he's just feeling grand now. So he finishes it with a move called Stirring the Pot, which is where he goes down on hands and feet and skates to the center of the ice and does a really fast spin on all fours, which has never been seen before. It's just incredible.
And impossible?
Not for this rat, not for Remy. Some have said it's impossible, but Remy's made it possible.
So my biggest question is how does Remy deal with the size differential of human-sized ice rinks to his rat body?
Oh, see, I assumed that, it's like an accessibility thing so that they would give him a rat-sized rink to perform in for himself. I don't know. That's a silly question to me. Why would they make him... They've got to make it accessible. This isn't... Yeah, that's rude. speciest.
You wouldn't say that to HW, Wesley. Jeez.
Well, Remy exists in a real restaurant. Like, it's not like Remy in Ratatouille exists in a world built for him. He overcame that obstacle and works in a human-sized world. So I thought maybe you would do something with that. It's also just something that popped into my head that I thought would be funny to ask.
Little did you know.
Fuck me, right? Emily, Chris?
Do you have any concerns with his tail getting caught in something during his routine?
Oh.
No, because it's tucked into his orange suit. So it actually looks kind of like he's got a rat tail for the back of his hair, which is very, the style for a lot of figure skaters.
I don't know rat tail. If you all know this, but I rocked a rat tail for many years when I was younger.
That doesn't surprise me.
I did not know that.
I think from ages like 3 to 7, I had I was pretty cool. On to question 2. Ice skating may not be everyone's jam. And I know from years of our friendship that there is a healthy competition between you two, Matt and Ben. Maybe sometimes stretching to a little less than honorable. So I would love to hear you create a plan to sabotage your opponent in whatever type of competition you want. So Ben, how would you sabotage Matt in competition?
Yeah, so we all know Matt's a gamer, right? On Twitch, at Fat Manderson, check him out.
Mm-hmm.
But if he gets too big at gaming, he's going to quit this podcast, and I refuse to let that happen. So the next time Matt competes in one of those Fortnite competitions, he must be prevented from winning, and the easiest way to do that is to give him a big audience that will slowly undercut his self-confidence. So as Matt's playing, and obviously streaming on Twitch, I and 100 people who I've hired will anonymously be on his Twitch stream, slowly eroding his confidence by second-guessing every decision he makes in the chat. Matt, having never played for an audience this size, will lose focus on the game, obviously. Matt, not wanting to miss out on the opportunity to gain followers, will respond to everything said in the chat and will commit to his typical 2 push-ups per new subscriber. This will lead to him completely destroying his chest muscles as he struggles to hit those 200 push-ups. His chest, now screaming with pain, will make it difficult for him to hold the controller as he whines about his body being overworked. This will lead to further ridicule from those in the chat, who will then mass exodus, leaving him to wonder what he could have done differently. Confidence completely shaken, he'll lose Fortnite, give up Twitch, and focus on this amazing podcast that he is on, being none the wiser that it was I who destroyed his dream.
Wow.
That's pretty funny. Quick little side story there. I used to have 25 push-ups per sub, and then somebody donated 10 subs at once, and I was like, okay, we're done with that. 250 push-ups, and I was like, no, we're done forever.
My favorite part of that was watching Matt, and I think I can only assume was the realization of how much this would actually work on him. Because as you kept laying out the plan, it was just like, oh God, what would I do? I don't have any follow-ups with that, unless
me either.
I think you wrote the best way how to sabotage Matt.
We all have known for a long time that Ben is a secret super evil genius. So
he really is.
Yeah,
it's not so
Master
secret anymore.
Saboteur.
Yeah,
right. All on last episode, he was like, "Yeah, I should have come up with the idea of the condemned."
It's $1 billion idea.
All right, Matt. Let's hear how differently you stack up to Ben's super evil brain.
I chose high school debate. Ben must win every argument. So to truly sabotage him, it would be magnificent in a debate. So the way I would sabotage him would be to let him win. Yes, we would let him wipe the floor against his opponent. He would come prepared and murder the competition, and his improvised arguments would also do very well. But the sabotage would come at the most critical moment in the debate towards the end, where he would also not get a rebuttal. Now, we all know high school debate doesn't keep the lights on for high school, so we need to liven it up. So what we would do is add into the rules chance time. For the first time in high school debate history, both teams would have a chance to swap all their stars and points based on a chance time wheel, where Ben would lose on the 50th turn of the debate and get beaten by his own very great points and argument. Truly a devastating defeat, and probably the only rule to be added to high school debate to make it actually interesting.
While we were on break, I literally was telling Chris how we used to just hang out all night and play Mario Party.
Oh, that's what that's from.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? Got it.
We used to play like 8-hour long Mario parties where it comes down to the last roll and it's chance time and all the stars get swapped. And
yeah, no, like I'm winning by like 30 stars and everybody's like, okay, so you need to hit a 7 to hit chance time. You're like, yes! Go to chance time and lose a fucking 3-hour game.
Wow.
I don't think you did high school debate, Ben, but I think you would have been good at it.
I didn't. At first I thought this was going to be your plan for taking me down in Battle of Twits, is letting me win and then like for 26 straight episodes and then undercutting me somehow.
I'm gonna be honest, that was a roller coaster. That I was trying to figure it out the whole way, and I'm very happy with how it ended in chance time because that is very funny. On to question 3. Everybody's favorite Napoleon, John Heder, came out of the gate strong in 2004 and hasn't really ever seemed to match the popularity of fat-shaming a llama named Tina. But maybe there is hope yet. After all, it's now 2021. Yay! Optimism is high. So, can you please pitch a role that resurrects John Heder's career? And we're going to go back to Matt to start.
John Heder will be a revolutionary Steve Jobs type in which he starts up a Silicon Valley startup, and the movie covers the rise and fall of a major tech company. Now, it would lend itself to all the things that John Heder does well, which is original. People doubt him at first, and then he grows to be larger than life. He's also a little bit older now, 43 years old, so this role would fit his face and personality really well. Now, some details about the plot. His company would be kind of hilarious, and I think it would be great to focus on deepfakes, VR, and therapy. People would get therapy from people that hurt them or celebrities like Christopher Walken. And the technology would eventually become abused and eventually land them in a bunch of hot water with improper use and being sued. And I think it's important to give him somebody that's had success with him in the past and could play the Woz character, the Wozniak character. So I chose Derek Aaron Rule, who played Kip from Napoleon Dynamite. Perfectly cast. Thank you. Reunited for the first time in nearly 20 years, I think that it'd also be important to have a director that also gets comedy. So I would have Adam McKay. And with Adam McKay, you would get Will Ferrell as the competing tech guru, evil genius, where he'd be able to truly resurrect his career and skewer the Silicon Valley culture perfectly.
I have so many questions, but I'm going to let Chris go first in case he has some.
Well, that sounds really, really good, and I want to watch it right now. And I think John Heder kind of looks like Mark Zuckerberg. Kip casting, I think, is very good. If I had $1 billion, I would greenlight it.
Thank you.
I just don't understand this company's thing.
Right.
They do therapy from
it's VR therapy.
Deep fake VR therapy.
Such as Christopher Walken?
Yeah, I did like that. Get therapy from people who hurt them or Christopher Walken.
Yeah. Hearing you guys say it makes me realize it was not very well written out. But let me just jump in.
So wait, like I go into therapy and my options are I do virtual reality and it's a person that is in my life or a celebrity.
Right. So it could like transform in real time because it's VR, but you're on the couch, you can feel the couch. It's truly a revolutionary technology. And then when I added in Christopher Walken, I was kind of thinking more like, you know how like you can just pay extra money and then your GPS will be like, turn right now. Like that was kind of like where I was going was like, you could, there's like this company's got to make like $1 billion and then the technology has to fall into the wrong area and then they get sued. So ultimately he could have a downfall. And it's kind of based around Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes and the biotech company. But obviously it's comedy. So I wanted to switch up some of the elements. And kind of class it up.
I don't know what the thing is you just said, but it makes me very upset that this is another Matt answer where it's just another already existing property.
It's not. I mean, Adam McKay will be directing a movie called Bad Blood that's based on Elizabeth Holmes, but this is just a spin on it where it could be John Hader in, just technology that I find super interesting and probably dangerous. Honestly, deep fakes and all that stuff. So,
all right, Ben, that was far too much for Matt.
John Hader typically has only been cast in comedic roles, but I think his career would be resurrected by starring in a comedic role within a more serious movie. So I think we all know that inevitably there's going to be a movie made about Trump. And I'd like that movie to be directed by Adam McKay, who also directed Vice. And I think John Hader should be cast as Eric Trump. Now, the easiest reason for this is that they look a lot alike. Like, pull up their pictures side by side. They look very similar. But that's just the beginning of why this casting works, because while none of Trump's sons would ever be called super intelligent, Eric in particular is the stupid one. And I think John Hader has a good grasp on stupid comedy. If you look at Napoleon Dynamite, like, that's just stupid comedy and him being just kind of idiotic throughout the entire movie. And I think that he could portray this idiotic comedy relief within a more serious look at the Trump administration. So my movie is going to be called 45 after the number of the Trump administration. And then this casting would allow Hader to come back into the public consciousness and lead to additional castings where he kind of carves out a niche as a character actor in dramedies.
Okay. Different strategy than Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different pitches.
I have a question. To revive his role, why wouldn't you put him in the lead?
See, I think that he's not a lead actor, and I don't think that's the way to get him back to prominence and relevance. Like, he's going to be best suited in a role that allows him to just shine and steal scenes rather than being like the force that needs to be dealt with within this movie. Because we've never seen him really take on a lead role and run with it in a movie that was not a comedy. So I think this is the better in for him to get back into things. And then maybe after that, he could eventually be like a Bradley Whitford or a Richard Grant.
Okay, I'm sold. You win.
So you think a serious role that allows him to start a more character actor life?
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be if you've seen Vice, that movie is basically a comedy just pretending to be a drama.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be in that similar vein of the typical Adam McKay serious movie.
I will say, boy, does he look so much like Eric.
Yeah, that's a great casting. Question 1 was a randomly assigned character where you had to pitch a figure skating routine. For Matt, you chose Daniel Plainview. Ben, you chose Remy. Matt, I think your speech just really had me right out of the gate. I thought that was very funny. Ben, you definitely had a much more detailed physical choreography, and I really like that, but I'm almost interpreting Daniel Plainview's physical choreography as part of his speech because that is kind of his character, and that's how he would get people on his side. The cherry on top, though, was the no music for the awareness of the deaf community. That's still making me laugh, both because I think it's so funny from the movie's perspective, but also as a nod to HW. So question 1's going to Matt.
Ding, ding, ding.
Woo! Question 2, create a sabotage plan for your opponent in whatever competition you want. Ben, this was scary.
Diabolical.
Scary. The detail and thought that went into the sabotage I thought was absolutely amazing. And then while we were discussing this, Chris offered this as his perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the look of fear in Matt's eyes, like that someone has his number, and he's like, oh my gosh, that would all work so perfectly. And it's like Matt is so scared. He's living life knowing that someone knows exactly how to take him down.
Yeah. Matt, I think yours was very funny. I enjoyed that I didn't know where it was going, and the chance time twist at the end is very funny for at least me, but I don't know how much that will land with everybody. But the final straw there was Ben having a personal incentive for this sabotage, where Matt's years was kind of sabotage for sabotage's sake. So I think just having that little bit of a motive in there made Ben's a little bit better for me. So Ben's getting question 2.
Okay.
Question 3 is, what's going to resurrect John Heater's career? Honestly, this one was really hard. I really liked both of the movies. Matt, I thought yours was really creative. The idea of a deep fake VR therapy, it seems like something that's going to happen. And I know it might have hurt your argument a little bit, but still the sentence, get therapy from the people who hurt you or Christopher Walken, made me laugh quite a bit. But I think it's a good idea. Ben, I think you just nailed it. You nailed John Heater being in a good role for John Heater. The lookalike, I mean, it helps it more than it rightly should. And I think that the movie would be, again, kind of maybe inevitable, where both of these seem like possible movies that could come out. And the differentiator here was that Ben's movie utilized John more specifically, where Matt, your movie, I don't think necessarily needed to be John Heater. And also that having John as a side character and not the lead allows him to shine a little bit brighter and then given access to more leads in the future, where I don't think anybody's given John Heater lead roles anymore, because why would they? So for a couple reasons there, that one's going to Ben. It was very close, but at the end of the day, this one is going 2-1 to Ben.
Well done, Matt. Well,
congratulations,
Yay.
both of you. But also that means, Ben, you cycled through again.
But that also means that Matt did too.
And Matt did.
Didn't get lapped.
Yep. So Matt and I are going to spend the next week thinking of what we want as a reward, and we will announce that on the next episode, which is going to be the Simpsons movie. We're going to have Connor back from No Highway Option. And for those who don't remember, No Highway Option is the podcast where they seek to answer the one question that applies to all movies. Is it better than the Vin Diesel movie, The Pacifier?
Which most of the time it's not.
Yeah. I did a guest spot on their show, and it should be coming out around the time this one comes out. I was on and I did Happy Gilmore. So listen to them and watch that movie. I'll give you a heads up. I did not think Happy Gilmore was better than The Pacifier.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow. Hot take.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for being on the show. You are wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. I love making new friends. Emily, Wesley, Ben. We're now best friends.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
And the listeners, best friends. Chris, one more time, where can people find you?
You could find me on the interwebs. Chris Bennett Comedy is my @ for all the things. You could also watch Q Country 92.5 on Facebook Live. Or if you're in Sholo, hit me up. But if you're in Sholo, you can listen to us on Q Country 92.5.
Beautiful.
Chris, it was so delightful having you on. I love the energy.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
thank you,
needed
best
it
friends.
today.
Well, if you guys are still listening, please be sure to share us, rate us, and help us grow. And we appreciate you guys. So yeah, that's been Blades of Glory. And tune in next week for the Simpsons movie.
Yep, and if you want to hit us up on social media, we are at IDYP_podcast on Twitter. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, or you can hit us up at idrinkyourpodcast@gmail.com.
All the links in the description.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo.
Bye, everybody.
And check out Chris. He's hilarious.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.